Guys, this is Comic Uno, and today I'm doing Comic Uno's Best Comics of the Week, and this is the show where I review all the comics I've read this week in one show. We go least favorite to best pick of the week and everything in between, and at the end of the video, we talk about the viewer's pick of the week, so in the comments below, let me know your pick of the week for a chance to be featured in the next episode. But let's get started. I had about 12 books this week, and number 12 for me was The Incredible Hulk, issue 16. This definitely leans more into Immortal Hulk, which I thought I would like more, because I do like Immortal Hulk a lot, but it doesn't really feel like it fits this run very much. I enjoyed Charlie and Bruce's relationship, and there just doesn't feel to be as much Hulk and Bruce and Charlie in this issue as I wanted. It focuses more on the light and these gods, and it was just a little bit too much of an information dump for me than what I think Immortal Hulk was, which was more introspective. So giving that 1.5 stars, and that is number 12. Moving on to number 11, a book that has been delayed and delayed and delayed, and now there's just another volume coming out, and that is Just Society of America, issue 11. This is the penultimate issue of the book. I feel like this book has really lost its way since all the delays. I'm sure there's a lot of background information that was going on that we don't know about, but you know, again, we have a new volume of Just Society that feels very disconnected to this. I personally like the Huntress stuff a bit more. That's what attracted me to this book. And now you got the Legion of Superheroes and the JSA. Huntress doesn't feel a big part of this book. And I just feel like, again, it lost its footing. The artwork is not as strong as it was. It just feels like whatever the production was going on just made this one falter out. So giving that 2.5 stars, 2 stars, and that is number 11. Moving on to number 10, which is Birds of Prey, issue 13. This is a book that I keep on my pull list because I like the characters, but I've only liked a select few issues. I feel like it really throws you into a lot of different settings. This one's the spirit world. There's a lot of characters, not a ton of character moments where you get to see the team bond, and that's something I'm looking for, Birds of Prey book 4. But I like the aesthetic. I like that it looks very different than other team books, but it just hasn't been doing it for me. We'll see as it goes on. Now there's this story with Barbara again. Maybe that'll pick things up, but I wasn't that interested in this issue. So giving that 2 stars, and that is number 10. Moving on to number 9, which is Batman issue 152. This is connected to Absolute Power, which I think has been an okay event. I'm excited to see what the aftermath of this event is with everything with All In. And I don't think it's a bad event. I just also haven't been as attracted to it as I think a lot of others have been. I like the art. I think we'll talk more about Absolute Power as a whole. Like I enjoyed that. But the tie-ins for me, most of them have not been necessary, and I just want to see what's going on with Batman outside of Absolute Power. This very much heavily ties into the current issue of Absolute Power, and maybe because we're getting new creative teams on a lot of books, that is why we're kind of stalling a bit. That's what this issue felt like, a stall. The artwork was not for me. I didn't feel like it was as strong as we've seen with Batman, so overall, giving that 2.5 stars. Moving on to number 8. Which is Venom War, issue 2. This is the Spider-Man tie-in. I've been picking it up because I just want to see Jackpot and Spider-Man team up, but the actual emotional team up is not really there. There's just a lot of jokes. Venom in general has become very jokey with Spider-Man, much more like the movie than I feel like the comics. The Paul situation all in the equation is weird because Peter's like, go Paul. And I'm like, why does he like Paul so much? I don't really understand. And I just don't feel like there was a lot of meat in this issue. They fight, they work together, and that's kind of it. The Greg Land's artwork, I think he does pretty well with the costumes and the powers, but when it comes to facial expressions, that is not his biggest strength. So overall, giving that 2.5 stars. I might pick up the next issue depending, but I haven't really been enjoying this tie-in as much as I've wanted to. Moving on to number 7. I started to talk about it before, and that's Absolute Power issue 3. The artwork is good. The story, I feel like there's a lot going on. There's a lot of characters they're trying to balance, and I am still not completely convinced of the Amanda Waller storyline, but I want to see where it goes. I like that it does feel like a big, I won't say cosmic event, but a shattering event. And well, you know what? By the end, you get some multiverse situations going on, which I think we all knew was going to lead into because of where DC is going to be going with All In. That was an okay issue. Even for this, I feel like it was a pretty point A to point B issue. There's so many characters that they're trying to balance that there's not like a ton of character moments. So overall, giving that 2.5 stars, and that is number 7. Moving on to number 6, which is Duck and Cover issue 1. This was on Comixology a billion years ago. Now Dark Horse is finally publishing it as a physical book. I love American Vampire. It's one of my favorite comic books of all time. So seeing the creative team return on a historical piece type comic, I wanted to check this one out. The aspect I like about it is kind of everything I just said. I like that it's the same creative team as American Vampire, from the look to the writing style. I like how cinematic it is, but the characters kind of fall flat for me. It wasn't a lot to invest in, and I don't think the history and the way how it looks so cinematic really helps this book for me to want to get issue 2. And you also could kind of tell it's built to be a digital book. I think there's like 2 issues in one here to make it bigger, and then they make it even bigger with like 10 pages of extra content, which is just like character designs. So, I thought it was an okay issue. I'm glad I picked up the first issue, but I don't think I will get the second issue. So overall, giving that 3 stars, and that is number 6. Moving on to number 5, which is the Ultimates issue 4. I actually thought this was one of the stronger issues since issue 1, because it focused on an element that I feel like is more geared toward the Ultimate Universe, which is the Fantastic Four, honestly. I'm surprised we don't have a Fantastic Four series. This is more about the Maker and Iron Lad, and that's been a big build-up for this new Ultimate Universe. I do think some of it's convoluted. I don't understand all of it, but I like the connections to the Fantastic Four, and Reed in particular, because he was such a big part of the previous Ultimate Universe as well, and him being evil, his connection with Doom. I thought it was a pretty solid issue. I think the artwork fit for this as well. I'm curious to see where the series is going, because there's a lot of different issues that feel so disconnected, but I'm sure there's a rhyme and reason. So giving that 3 stars, and that is number 5. Moving on to number 4, new series, Minor Arcana, issue 1. It's Jeff Lemire. He's so good at character stories, and that's what happens here. It took me a while to appreciate Jeff Lemire's art, but I think his style just works very well for the small town tales he's trying to tell. And in this issue, he does a really good job at just developing our characters here. Our main character, she goes back home, has a bad relationship with her mom, has her life falling apart, and goes back to her hometown. So she's like, all right, I kind of left these things, and I don't want to be reminded by them, and now I have to be. And oh yeah, my mom owns this like psychic shop that might have more powers to do with it than she thought. So, I think there's that little weird element of magic that's being told here, but in a more grounded way than usual magic stories. Again, I liked how they built this town, how the cast is built in this issue, and definitely gave me enough to want to read issue 2. So overall, giving that 3.5 stars, and that is number 4. Moving on to number 3, Plastic Man No More, issue 1. I've been addicted to these Black Label books, especially now that they're not magazine size. I especially like the Black Label books that aren't Batman and Superman. I think they've been doing a better job with that. Zatanna is one of my favorite DC books out right now, one of my favorite books out, period. And this one does a really good job of establishing a character that I personally don't know much about, and feeling sorry for him. He was a villain. He joins the Justice League. He's not taken seriously, and now he's dying, and he has a really bad relationship with his family, and his son might die because of the thing that's happening with his powers. And I think they set that up really well. The artwork really leans into the lonerness of the character. I feel like I learned a lot about him. I feel like for people that love this character, it felt like a love letter to him all at the same time. So overall, I liked it. Gave me enough to want to read issue 2 for a character I don't know much about. So giving that 3.5 stars, and that is number 3. Moving on to number 2, which is Uncanny Valley issue 5. I love this book. I'm honestly pretty disappointed that it's ending soon. I feel like there's so much more story to tell, but this is a really well done penultimate issue. We learn a little bit more about our main character's mom, her connection to the cartoons, how our main character is the chosen one. It's a very hero's journey element. And then you get a little metatextual with this like blank white canvas that he makes, and the next cover is of an artist and maybe the creator of all of them. So I'm like, all right, I'm excited to see where this ends up going. I love the Saturday morning cartoon references, and it's just a really, really fun series that feels different, but also leans into the nostalgia. So giving that 4 stars, and that is number 2. Moving on to number 1, our topic of our video, that I absolutely love this book. I don't remember last time I loved an X-Men book this much, or just a big 2 book from the first issue, and that is Exceptional X-Men issue 1. Let's start talking about the elephant in the room. Kitty is confirmed to be bisexual. again. So I write this in my title because she was confirmed to be bisexual years ago. Let's talk about the journey of Kitty Pryde. So in Marauders, she kisses a girl. Everyone's like, okay, she's bi. And then they never did anything with it. They're like, all right, well, I guess we're not going to talk about it. And there's just been always so many queer codingness with Kitty Pryde that's been since the beginning of her creation, but especially once she had a friendship with Rachel. And Chris Claremont has confirmed on many, many occasions that Kitty's queer. She's always written to be queer. So this did not come out of left field. This has always been a part of the character. And it's honestly a pretty small part of the issue. It really is just her saying, oh, I'm going on a date with this girl. The date doesn't even happen in this issue. But what I love about this book is that it is such a love letter to Kitty Pryde. And just to give you guys a little background information, A, I am bi. And also B, I am a very big Kitty Pryde fan. I've been a fan of this character since forever. X-Men Evolution, growing up as a kid, it got me into comics books. I'm like, I need to learn more about this character, and I just read her all the way through. I love Kitty Pryde, and I love where she started and where she's gone. I think that's what's always been fun about her character, is that she was this joyful, youngest X-Men character, the relatable character, the Spider-Man of that era, and she is one of the few characters like Nightwing or the Teen Titans that was able to grow. She's not stuck as a 13-year-old. She's not stuck like Spider-Man, who's, 20-something, 30-something. We got to see her grow up and go through pains. And I think that's what's so relatable, once again, about Kitty. And what's so great about this book is that she's a relatable millennial, just trying to find her way. And there's so many great moments that touch upon that. There's this page where she talks about, I did all these things as an X-Men. I did bad things to try to make the next generation better. And I'm seeing that it didn't matter. And she's going through a lot of anxiety and trauma. And guess what? That's always been built into that character. If you look, a lot of this, you can even look past in the Wolverine and Kitty Pryde miniseries, probably one of the best known Kitty Pryde stories out there, and one of my favorite stories too. She goes back to Deerfield, tries to have a normal life, and then she gets consumed by Ogun and everything in the X-Men, and she has to go through traumatic events that get the devil literally out of her. And this is kind of a similar story. She goes back to her home, and I liked how morally gray it was, and just like gray in general, where even the idea of humans, usually in X-Men books, are like, they all hate mutants. There's no one that likes mutants if you're a human. And this book, I think, did a good job at showing that. Like, obviously, people still hate mutants. But then there's the roommate character with Kitty, who you don't directly get to know that she knows that she's a mutant, but it's pretty direct, where she's like, oh, do you want to talk about the X-Men? And Kitty's like, not really. And this is just a childhood friend she had, and she's keeping contact with. And I really enjoyed that element. So yeah, I like that we are seeing a more modern version of Kitty. I mean, we even have a dating app situation here where I think really works for this book, where there's just like a few lines that, again, are just very relatable, where she's like, oh, she didn't show up. She ghosted me. Oh, wait, I didn't pick the right date. Oh, wait, should I text her? Should I talk to her in the app? And just those little moments that I felt really relatable. I know some people were a little conflicted with the bartender storyline, but honestly, another element that was played off of in earlier Kitty Pryde books. When she was in college, there was a miniseries from Chris Claremont where she was a bartender. So a lot of this has just come from past Kitty Pryde storylines that are now coming to a head. And I like this. Feels like a solo book. We have enough X-Men books where it's like 10,000 people on a team. There's plenty of X books that are team books, period. But this feels like it's slowly building their team. We were introduced to that new mutant. I understand that new mutant now. There's a really great conversation between her and her grandma. Again, this human mutant conversation that I think post Krakoa has done a pretty good job at. So yeah, honestly, I just really love this issue. Again, I think it is a true love letter to the character. And I think what this book is gonna do as they introduce more children into the book, it really is gonna be reverse engineering Kitty, where again, she was the fun-loving character who so happened to fall into a lot of trauma. I think these kids are gonna remind her about that fun lovingness of life, and I'm curious to see where that's going to end up going and how she's going to be as a teacher and as a leader. And obviously Emma's throwing a big wrench into things too. It's always fun to see Emma and Kitty together, but I love the groundedness of it. I truly do, and I think this is going to be a really cool character story for her. And again, I could go on and on forever about why this is so great, but the artwork works so well. There's like little Easter eggs with like Lockheed as like a paper mache character. I literally just can't wait until issue 2. I love this issue. If you love Kitty Pryde, I think you're going to enjoy this. I'm curious to see where the queer story goes. There's little elements here that I think they did a really good job with, being very subtle at doing queer allegory. Especially there's a line where Kitty says, I could kind of just stay in the shadows. I'm the girl who goes through walls. I can pass. And I think it was a pretty interesting allegory, not just to queerness, but also to being bisexual, which you definitely don't get to see a lot of stories about. So there's just so many little elements that you could pick here. And I love books like that, especially when the big 2 could do that. So overall, giving that one 5 stars. I loved it. And I'm glad that Kitty's finally canonically bisexual confirmed for the 10th time. So hopefully you guys enjoyed. Let me know in the comments below what you thought of all your books this week. Last week I didn't have an episode, so I don't have the viewers pick of the week, but obviously next week I will. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. This is Comic Uno, and I'll see you guys in the next one.